We've got it covered for you all day today and right into tomorrow night when we drop the green flag and put $1 million on the line. Alex Hayden alongside. My name is Jeff Striegel. Downstairs in the garage, Kim Coon, Steve Post. They're there and they are ready along with 24 open teams or open drivers, whatever you want to call it. We'll explain. We are trying to set the field for the All-Star event. 15 drivers are locked in. We're going to add more once we go with the open race tomorrow, and those cars getting ready to take to the track right now.
They are indeed, those 24 you pointed out, and the way these 24 drivers have the opportunity to be a part of the All-Star field is you have to win either one of the first two stages of the Monster Energy Open. You win your stage, you go straight to the garage, you're in the main event. Then you win the entire open race itself and take the checkered flag. You, too, will also be part of the Monster Energy All-Star race. And the fourth way these 24 drivers could get into the Monster Energy All-Star main event is by the fan vote on there. And the fans have been voting vigorously, and that's a good thing. So those are the ways these 24 drivers have the opportunity to be one of four to join the 15 others in the Monster Energy NASCAR All-Star race.
Do you realize it is the 35th annual NASCAR All-Star event dating all the way back to 1985? And I would imagine no matter who you are, no matter how long you've been around this sport, going all the way back to the 60s and the 70s, or maybe you've only been around it for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I bet you remember, if not one, several spectacular all-star events, and we're hoping to have one here tomorrow night under the lights on the Motor Racing Network. Let's talk about our question of the day, the MRN Radio question of the day, which people can follow along on Twitter at MRN Radio. Make sure you use the hashtag AskMRN. Going all the way back to 1985, on that particular night, there were 12 drivers in the field. 8 of them went on to become a member of the NASCAR Hall of Fame. And that kind of parlays into our question of the day.
And that is, who do you think of the current 15 NASCAR All-Star drivers in tomorrow night's main event do you think are Hall of Famers? Give us your thoughts. Share your opinion on which drivers or driver, however you may vote on that, in your opinion. Share it at MRN Radio on Twitter. Use the hashtag AskMRN. We've got an awful lot. We read some tweets in the opening practice. We'll continue to do that throughout the remainder of the day.
NASCAR.com or MRN.com. Remember, if you are a part or want to be a part of the video, make sure you're on NASCAR.com. They've got our audio and video. MRN.com has audio only. Either way, again, glad to have you with us. Let's go downstairs, not to an open team, but an update from when we last left you. The slowest car of the 38 that were on the racetrack was none other than Brad Keselowski in that number 2 Team Penske Ford Mustang. That in itself, Steve Post, a major, shocking surprise. They worked on it. They'd go out, they'd come back, they'd work, they'd go out, they'd come back. But at the end of the day, at the end of that practice session, nobody was slower. What's going on with that team right now?
The problem they had with it was a power steering issue with that race car, and they tried multiple things to fix it. So the teams have had about 35, 40 minutes off, and actually that team, because they're in the All-Star race, has another hour to work on the car before they will be back on the racetrack for practice. But just checked in with Travis Geisler. He is one of the competition department guys in there, and they seem to have figured out, he believes they've figured out what the problem was with the power steering. Now, he wasn't willing and able or had the desire to not share with me what was happening with the power steering on the car, but they believe they've got it figured out. He looked at me, he smirked and said, but we'll let you know for sure 5 minutes into the next practice session. So they think they've got it figured out. They feel pretty comfortable, and now they're just going through the routine. The problem is that they're behind now everybody else that had that full 50 minutes of practice to work on and fine-tune their race cars. They're going to have to do that in their practice session. So they're behind the 8 ball just a little bit on the amount of time they've been able to work on a finished setup for that race car.
That's Steve Post. Kim Coon is also down there in the garage area. And Kim, for these 24 open drivers, practice is about ready to begin. There's an awful lot of drivers and teams down there that are anxious to get the track to themselves.
Absolutely, and a little of a mixed bag down here. I see a lot of drivers that are still kind of talking with their crew chiefs because, to Steve's point, they had about 30 minutes in between the first practice when all of the cars, all of the cars, meaning the open cars and the guys that have already locked their place into the All-Star race, got to practice. Now, these guys in the open get their track time specifically, and like I said, a mixed bag. So you have some drivers that are still talking with their crew chief about what they were able to find in the first practice, maybe some things that they need to do to their car to get it ready for this practice. And then you've got guys that have already fired up their engines. The first engine I heard, Ty Dillon, he is locked, loaded, and ready to go. He's going to pull that Geico Chevrolet out of his garage stall. Be one of the first cars on the track. And then others, as I am talking, getting aboard their cars as well. Corey LaJoie just jumped aboard his. David Reagan kind of taking in the scene, looking at what his team is doing to the car, because it's my understanding a lot of unhappy drivers after the first practice. So I would imagine they're doing some serious adjusting on some of these race cars before this second practice.
Kim, do you know a non-unhappy race car driver at all? Have you ever met one?
That is true, Jeff. That is true, because they're always looking for more. The only happy race car driver is the driver in Victory Lane, and even then he's looking in next week to see if they can one-up themselves and get to Victory Lane the following week. So you're right.
You are absolutely correct. Green flag went in the air about 1 minute ago. And, oh, by the way, when we talk about the open teams that are not part of the already locked-in 15 All-Stars, we do have a big name or two, one of them on the racetrack right now.
That is Kyle Larson. He's the first car on the track, and at speed, beautifully painted bright green and bright blue Chevrolet Camaro from Chip Ganassi Racing. Advent Health on board that race car. It's nice to see Advent Health stepping up in their support of not only Kyle Larson, Chip Ganassi Racing, but of NASCAR in general. Kyle Larson on the racetrack. He flashes by the start-finish line. His second fast lap is on the board, 176.3 miles per hour. Ty Dillon, Matt Tifft, Corey LaJoie, they're all coming up to speed as well.
So 24 open teams taking advantage. Practice session right now. Green flag is out. More in a moment from Charlotte Motor Speedway. This is the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Veteran drivers and rookie drivers. NASCAR Today Midday keeps you up to date with all your favorites each weekday.
It's a dream come true. A lot of you know the path that I've gone down.
There's a lot of opportunity with the package changes, with the Chevrolet and the work they're putting in. And I know one thing's for sure, it's good to have my name on the top of the Cup car.
Don't miss any of the breaking NASCAR news with NASCAR Today Midday. Only on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Hi, this is Mike Bagley. Join me and the rest of the MRN crew every Tuesday night for NASCAR Live. We'll get you up to date with the latest news stories and ready for the upcoming race weekend.
So many crazy things happen there. It's one of those races where anything can happen, especially at the end.
Hear exclusive interviews, expert analysis, and much more.
Oh yeah, boys, how about that? Oh yeah, great job.
It's NASCAR Live this Tuesday night at 7 Eastern on the Motor Racing Network.
Live from the Charlotte Motor Speedway with coverage of practice for the 2019 Monster Energy NASCAR All-Star Race.
24 open teams combined with 15 all-star teams make up the drivers and the teams that are on the property here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. This practice right now dedicated to the 24 open teams, and they are taking advantage. Bubba Wallace coming out of the garage. Right behind him, Alex Bowman, Ricky Stenhouse. On the racetrack right now, you see Matt Tifft, who is working right in front of Ty Dillon, and now we see the caution flag. A quick look around the racetrack. Doesn't appear to be anybody in trouble, but
chunk of debris over here in turn number 4 is the reason for the stoppage there, Jeff. And when we look down there, we see that the racetrack, they've put down that. And I know Steve Post referred to it, and we'll bring Postman on there during the Truck Series practice today. Postman, what was your technical term for the substance that they applied to the corners here?
Well, Dave Moody and I called it goop. I had previously called it sticky stuff, but I think Dave come up with a little slicker term on it. So, yeah, we're calling it goop is what we're calling it. And you'll hear it referenced as VH1, VCT, CTX, SIX. I mean, it's just – everyone has a name for it, but I just call it sticky stuff or goop for the accurate scientific description.
And the goop is put down going off into turn number 1 through turns 1 and 2, and then right at the exit of turn 2, and then it picks up again at the entrance to turn 3 all the way through the corners, essentially from about the second lane up from the apron of the racetrack all the way to the safer barrier is where that finger quotes goop is out there on the racetrack. The idea is it's a sticky substance out there. But here's the thing, Jeff. You look at where we're at here in Charlotte, North Carolina, mid-May. You know, I was just up in New York City the last couple of days watching a little golf, and I had to wear a jacket. It was 50 degrees and wind blowing. It's currently 85 degrees here in Concord, North Carolina. It is hot. It's hazy, a little sticky out there, and then you add that goop on the racetrack. I can only imagine what that's going to do to that with that heat and humidity out here.
I can imagine as well. I can only imagine as well. And that, of course, is why everybody is trying to get as much track time as they can. And, yes, I feel your pain. I come from Michigan. We haven't seen 85 since July of 2018. It's been a while. Hey, while it's shut down, let's remind you that you can interact with us. We want you to. On Twitter, at MRN Radio. Use the hashtag AskMRN. Maybe you would like to ask Posty or Kimmy a question, something for Alex or I. You can do that. But our question of the day is very simple. When you take a look inside the garage area, what drivers down there are future NASCAR Hall of Famers? And I think we get the point that Jimmy is a lock and that Kyle Busch is a lock and Harvick is a lock. So add to that list who's a lock, and maybe there's somebody there that we think is a lock and you don't. Either way, weigh in on Twitter at MRN Radio, hashtag AskMRN. We have yet to hear from you, Alex. Is there somebody on your list that might not be on everybody else's?
Well, it's hard to say because they're all accomplished. I think Denny Hamlin is definitely a Hall of Famer in my book. I mean, he's got a Daytona 500 win, and the sheer amount of wins Denny Hamlin's got, it's tough to win, and it's tough to win against this type of competition. And for him to be able to do it as much as he had, I think Denny Hamlin, to me, is a NASCAR Hall of Famer. Once his career is all said and done, I think that's a fair one. 33
wins. No championships. Do you have to have a championship to be a member of the NASCAR Hall of Fame? Yes or no?
Ask Mark Martin if you have to have a championship to be the member of the NASCAR Hall of Fame.
So you're saying no?
No, you do not. And it's about your contribution to the sport. I don't think championships are the be-all, end-all as far as being a NASCAR Hall of Famer. I will tell you this, because the question is what all-star drivers, and there are 15 of them. I'm just going to throw a little wrinkle out there. Since this is open practice for these 24 other teams, I think there's a NASCAR Hall of Famer in this garage for this particular practice that is not a race car driver.
I'm going to jump in here, Alex, because you stole mine, and I think you stole mine, and I'm going to say it before you do. But my vote for the All-Star Open future Hall of Famer is Chad Knaus.
Yes. Yeah. Kim and I are on the same way.
You said it. I was like waiting for you to throw down here. And you semi-stole my thunder. Semi-stole. You didn't say the name, but you kind of stole my thunder.
I was leading your way.
Yes.
I know my place, Kim.
I was teed up to tell you I'm going to go rogue and not pick a driver, and there you do, just crushing my spirit, Alex. But yes, we can agree. Chad Knaus, definitely a future Hall of Famer.
How could he not be? And no way I was going to steal Kim's thunder. I was just teeing her up. That's all I was doing. I was getting it to Kim. It is open practice that is going on right now. You know, Kyle Larson, he is the fastest out of the 15 drivers that have taken a time. Last time Kyle Larson competed in the Monster Energy NASCAR Open before the All-Star race was back in 2016. He went on to win the Open. From Charlotte Motor Speedway, this is the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Hey guys, it's Dylan Welch. He's Tyler Burnett. We're the co-hosts of the Rip the Fence podcast. If you like traditional non-wing dirt track racing, we've got the podcast for you.
Shane Meal trying to drive away.
I can't do everything, but I could do anything and everything I wanted before I got injured. So
just like many of the great podcasts going, we invite racers in to talk, and they tell us their life story.
And it's how I feel that matters.
It's the Rip the Fence podcast, available on MRN.com and your favorite podcast app.
Hey guys, Corley Joy. Join me and my friends Lauren Fox and Daryl Mott on the Sunday Money Podcast as we talk racing.
What happened in California? Like, what? Because
Yeah, they all sat in a pit road waiting for one guy to be the sacrificial lamb, and nobody wanted to do it. And just life.
Did you fall in love on TV?
No, definitely not. I could not.
Plus, you never know who might stop by.
Young Ryan Blaney's here with something in his hand.
I brought you our script because you guys are like our show. So
it's Sunday Money on MRN.com, iTunes, Spotify, or wherever else you listen to podcasts.
From the Queen City, it's practice for the 2019 Monster Energy NASCAR All-Star Race.
It is the final practice for this group of 24 drivers in the Monster Energy Open before the All-Star race. So this is their last chance to dial their race cars in. Practice right now fairly hot and heavy. There are, 6, 7 cars working in a draft up off turn number 4.
Michael McDowell just gave up the draft just a moment ago, brought his Ford into the garage area. He is right now the quickest car at 1:79.539. Daniel Hemric, Ty Dillon, William Byron, Kyle Larson also has been out and in the draft. Daniel Suarez right now in the draft, working off turn number 2, down the back straightaway. You can see Matt DiBenedetto is there as well, now up into the banking of turn number 3. Hemric is the car on the bottom, and I think that it's safe to say that Richard Childress has some pretty fast Chevrolet Camaros right now working down to the inside of Suarez.
Yeah, they do. Daniel Hemric, and it's a gold Chevrolet this week in Bass Pro Shop on board. This is all celebrating the golden anniversary of Richard Childress Racing. 50 years in NASCAR racing is certainly a huge accomplishment. But yeah, Daniel Hemric, very fast Chevrolet. Took a peek to the inside of that bright orange Ford Mustang. That is the Eris-sponsored Daniel Suarez car. And again, Jeff, they fan out, go double wide. It's nice to see multiple lanes out there on the racetrack.
Boy, absolutely. And right in front of the duo is Matt DiBenedetto and Ty Dillon, and they were basically doing the same thing, and that is running side by side. And anytime we can see them run side by side, Steve Post, it doesn't matter whether it's here at Charlotte, last week at Kansas. When the teams and the drivers are running side by side, everybody's happy.
Oh, no doubt about that. Some great racing we saw last week at Kansas, and well, that's the goal. That's what they're hoping for. We've talked a little bit about the rules package, and NASCAR uses this All-Star race as a trial run on some things. They did it last year, and that's what delivered what we had last week at Kansas. And they've got a few little changes on the cars here that they're using, and it does give them a good test session. And doing it here in May, it gives them time to fine-tune things before we get into rules packages for a year or two down the road. So that's what we see. But back to your point, and watching on some of the monitors around here, yeah, a lot of side-by-side racing around the racetrack. Looks like the drafting is good, and even looks like I might have just seen a slingshot there down into turn number 3. So lots of interesting dynamics with these cars, and I think that's one of the challenges. You're trying to make your race car fast, but it's almost like when we go to Daytona and Talladega, you also want to learn what your car does around somebody else. So it's that determining when to take chances and get around somebody else, and when to go out and just work on raw speed of your own race car.
As you're watching on NASCAR.com, you see Matt DiBenedetto. You get a little bobble there in the middle of turns 3 and 4, and that's Daniel Suarez. And Mr. Second Place, all of a sudden, Alex Bowman takes that Exalta Chevrolet around the track. You know, Alex Bowman's an interesting story because of the 3 straight second-place finishes, Jeff. Yeah, he was second at Talladega, strong run. Great run, second place at Dover. But I think his second place last week at Kansas Speedway was a race that he lost. He didn't finish second. He lost that race to finish second. And I think he admitted that when he got out of the race car, said, I made mistakes out there in the closing laps racing Brad Keselowski. And how many times in athletics and professional sports, which NASCAR certainly is, does someone have to lose one before they learn how to win one?
You know, and isn't it interesting, and Kim, you can weigh in on this. We're talking about the driver of the number 88 out of Tucson, Arizona, the 25-year-old driver, Alex Bowman. When he had his first second-place run, he was ecstatic. That was Talladega. I helped my teammate, Chase Elliott, go to victory lane. He backed it up at Dover. Got out of the car, Kim. He was pretty happy. Then he gets the third runner-up finish and realizes he probably coulda, woulda, shoulda won the race. he
Yeah.
wasn't happy. I think it goes to show that after a while, even getting second place gets old. You're there to win.
Yeah, to your point, Jeff, of unhappy race car drivers, you quickly turn from happy about a certain finish, a second place finish in this case with Alex Bowman, and that transitions into a little bit of frustration when it's 3 weeks in a row and you're breathing down the neck of a win and a first Cup Series win. Remember that's different than maybe a guy who already has a win or already has a basket full of wins. Alex Bowman looking for his first Cup Series win, and he's been so close 3 weeks in a row, and you could just feel and hear the dejection from him when he was interviewed post-Kansas. And he even kind of joked, though. He had a couple days to let that simmer, and then he joked when all the social media had come out about campaigning for the fan vote and who was in the lead and what the rankings were, and he said, well, with the rate and the luck we're going to finish second in the fan vote. So he's had a couple of days to kind of breathe it off, hoping, though, that maybe he'll get a first-place finish in one of these stages in the Open to transfer himself into the All-Star race. And I know Steve Post has had a close eye on their team. In fact, he's in the 88 garage stall with an update on Alex Bowman.
Yeah, Alex has just brought the Exalta car back into the garage area after a run out on the speedway, and feels pretty good about the race car. Chatted with him before the practice, and they feel like they've got a pretty good balance on the race car and feel like they were, especially among this open field, they feel like they're stacking up pretty well. Right now he's ran 13 laps in this practice session. On the speed charts, he's second, but a lot of this is going to be seeing what the car feels like in a draft and what it does. Alex talked a little bit about this open race and what this means, and you know, he has had this string of second-place finishes. And, he joked around about finishing second in the fans' most popular vote, the vote to get in here. And talking with him just before he climbed aboard this race car for practice, he said, we should be in a position to win this race, maybe win the first stage or the second stage. And so he feels really, really good about the car overall, the way the team is performing, and then how it's been here under this new configuration early on. Just went out and did it. I'm watching some of the crew members now. One guy's plugged the computer into the engine. Other guys are checking the tire temperatures, giving a look at the tires here, and looks like they feel pretty good about their race car as well and how it felt on the racetrack. So Alex Bowman trying to stop being the bridesmaid and maybe, even if it's the Open, to be the bride here tomorrow night at Charlotte Motor Speedway.
And I think a lot of it, too, is the fact that Alex Bowman is starting to feel like this is now his race team, because he was handpicked by Dale Earnhardt Jr. to take over that number 88 car. He's got Greg Ives, Dale Jr.'s crew chief there, and yeah, there's some different crew members mixed in now, but there's got to be enormous pressure to stand in there and start being the full-time driver of the number 88 car that our sport's most popular driver year after year, Dale Earnhardt Jr., vacated that seat. Now Bowman, I think, is settled in. I think there's a big degree of this success that's got to come from the mental side, Jeff.
I agree. I think we are weeks away from seeing Alex go to victory lane. I think we're just a little bit more than that because he had a head start, let's face it, over his teammate William Byron. I think that Byron at some point, maybe not soon, but I don't think it's far off, and we're going to see the 24 car back in victory lane. I've always been high on Alex and William. I think they're tremendously talented race car drivers. They have a great organization behind them, and it's just a matter of time for the two of them. And I think that we're going to be off and running. I want to read you something here on Twitter, and I appreciate Brian Ruther 17 on Twitter. Do you agree with this, yes or no, Alex Hayden? He puts on Twitter, don't have to win a championship to be a Hall of Famer. But if you do win a championship, you are a lock for the Hall of Fame. Truex is a lock, and Logano. So my question, and I think you know where I'm going.
I do.
If you win a championship, are you an automatic lock to be a member of the NASCAR Hall of Fame, yes or no?
No, because we have Cup Series champions right now that are not in the NASCAR Hall of Fame going back decades. So, no, just because you win a Cup Series championship does not mean you're a lock.
Great debate.
It is.
Steve Post, let's do the same thing with you. Agree with Alex or disagree with Alex? Do you have to be a championship driver in order to be a member of the NASCAR Hall of Fame, yes or no?
No, you don't. It's certainly, to me, it's one of the it certainly plays heavily into your favor. But no, we've already shown that's the case. Mark Martin, is there denying that? I mean, he's actually in the Hall of Fame, and when we got to his turn, there was no debate about his merit to get into the Hall of Fame. He was in. He's just a Hall of Fame driver. So no, the reality of it is that while I think a championship gives you merit, when you look at someone like an Alan Kowicki, whose life was cut short with a plane crash, the championship weighed heavily because he didn't have a large body of wins. So the championship plays heavily into that discussion. But no, it's not a yes or no simple answer as far as that goes. It's a key determinant, but it's not a yes or no answer.
Yeah, and you know what? You can continue that point before we step away and grab a break. Bobby Labonte has been on the NASCAR Hall of Fame ballot for a couple of years now. He's got a Cup Series championship. He's yet to be a lock voted in. He's also got an Xfinity Series championship, an old Busch Grand National championship. He's yet to be voted in.
So do you guys, I want to jump in here. Do you guys think Dale Earnhardt Jr. will get into the Hall of Fame?
Yes.
Well, he doesn't have a championship.
What do you think? I say
yeah,
yes.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
He absolutely will, because I think he gets on based on his contributions to this sport.
Which is the point. The championship is a big consideration, but there are other considerations also.
Because it's a Hall of Fame, not the Hall of Championships.
That a girl.
Thank you, Kim.
Kimmy from downtown. Bang.
and back to Brian, because I know, Brian, that you're listening, and we appreciate that. I love the debate. All right, Brian says a championship, you're a lock. Postman and Alex say no, not so fast. That's not the case. All you've got to do is go to Twitter and type in @MRN Radio and use the hashtag AskMRN and join us. Do you think that's the case? Who down there? You know, what I think we could spend an hour on this alone. Is Chase Elliott going to be in the NASCAR Hall of Fame? You talk about hedging your bet. You better have a very clear crystal ball if you're going to say absolutely he is or absolutely he's not. Right now, the body of work would say no. Ryan Blaney would say no. Kyle Larson. You know, isn't it crazy, Alex? I know you got to get to a break, but isn't it crazy that when Kyle Larson came into the sport a year in, now 2 years in, let's go back a little while, we were saying, my goodness, this kid is going to win 100 races. He's going to win 50 races, whatever the number might be. All right, it hasn't worked out that way. But back then, man, we had this individual on the fast track to championships and victory lane and maybe even the Hall of Fame. It just hasn't proved out, at least not yet.
No, it hasn't. And it's a fantastic debate. It's a fantastic discussion. And by the way, all of this going on because this upcoming Wednesday, we will vote the next class, the 2020 class of the NASCAR Hall of Fame. You know, I'll share some thoughts on that about the Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, among others, too. But it's open practice right now for the Monster Energy NASCAR Open tomorrow. Michael McDowell, who's only run 3 laps here in their final practice, has put the fastest lap on the board. The most laps run in this session, 22 by Matt DiBenedetto. He sits on the 11th spot in the rundown. It's McDowell, Daniel Hemric, Ty Dillon, David Reagan, and William Byron, the Fast Five. We'll talk more about Byron, maybe a little more Alex Bowman chat as well. Lots to talk about, including your tweets at MRN Radio. Use the hashtag AskMRN. From Charlotte Motor Speedway, this is the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
MRN's Classic Races.
Labonte gets crossed up. Labonte goes around. Dale Earnhardt now watches Labonte spun across the line and got the win.
Spanning 50 years of NASCAR racing.
Barney Hall. There's a beautiful afternoon here in Daytona Beach, and the action will be fast and furious.
Legendary voices, legendary races.
Darryl, simply, what happened? I just hope he chokes on that 200,000. That's all I can tell him.
MRN's Classic Races, available on MRN.com, iTunes, and your favorite podcast providers.
He did touch. No, he knocked the hell out of me.
Winged Nation with Steve Post, Aaron Evernham, and Ashley Stremme. Your destination for all things winged sprint cars. Each Saturday at 8:30 and 11:30 a.m. on MAV TV. Live at noon on wingednation.com and Facebook Live. Join us for in-depth conversations with drivers and personalities that make up the greatest dirt racing on earth. The Winged Nation Preview Podcast each Thursday previews the upcoming weekend. Winged Nation, winged sprint car talk covering dirt tracks all across America.
From the Queen City, it's practice for the 2019 Monster Energy NASCAR All-Star Race.
Charlotte Motor Speedway is where we are. Michael McDowell is the fastest. Daniel Hemric is second. Ty Dillon running 21 laps is third quick. David Reagan fourth. William Byron fifth. Kyle Larson, Daniel Suarez, Chris Buescher, Corey LaJoie, and Paul Menard round out the top 10 here in final practice for the open teams down here at Charlotte Motor Speedway.
All right, we're going to do something. We're going to take you kind of under the hood, if you will. Chad Knaus sat down with us, and we talked a little bit about what this new package has in store. Before we do that, let's talk to Steve Post about the guy that seems to be working this new package perfectly, and that's Michael McDowell. Steve, he was fast early on, and he's fast now.
Yeah, he is. I just checked in with his team here. Drew Blickensdorfer's the crew chief on the car, and they just have gone back out for another run. That first run that put him atop the speed chart was a 3-lap run, and he found the right spot for the draft and really got a good run on the car. Just in general, listening to the conversation with Michael, even throughout the first practice and then onto this practice, he's fairly happy. Relative to a lot of other people, he's fairly happy with the balance of this race car. One set of turns is a little bit better than the other, but he's feeling pretty good about the race car as well. Now, he's back out on the racetrack, or at least left the garage area, and out knocking down some more laps and just trying to learn more about the car. As a matter of fact, he's ran 6 laps in this segment, maintains a spot at the top of the speed chart, but that was from the earlier time around the racetrack. And he's kind of, now that he's comfortable with the race car, is now in that let's see what it does around other cars mode. And I think a lot of teams are getting to that stage where they just want to see what the race car feels like along the way. But Michael McDowell is pretty content, pretty comfortable with his race car.
There's been a big debate about this rules package for both the Open and All-Star cars for this entire weekend. Everybody's got the same stuff, and it's all new at the front of the cars. The hoods are a little different with the openings in the middle of them. And Chad Knaus says he likes using the actual race to be able to run this type of product.
I think this is a good opportunity to collect some data. We saw this pattern definitely last year when they came out with the rule package that's similar to what we have now for the All-Star race last year. I would have liked, knowing that we were going to go to it as quickly as we did, I would have liked to have vetted it out just a little bit better before we took it to the track starting this year, our current package. But the Gen 7 or what it is that we're running at the All-Star race, I think that's a great opportunity to go and just see what happens for sure, because as smart as we all think we are, we all miss a detail or two along the way. So there's a lot of things to go through and try to get figured out.
Right now, his driver, Chad's driver, is 5th quick. That would be William Byron. He comes across very slowly here at the start-finish line, maybe waiting on the draft or a group of cars working in the draft to catch him. They're making their way across the start-finish line right now, heading back to turn number 1. All right, we think, the NASCAR fan, that NASCAR gives you a rules package, and they give it to you on Friday, and they say, hey, a week from now we're going to make you put it on the race car. You can't test it. You barely even know what we're giving you. That's so far from the truth, and we can explain why, because we spent some time in the garage and asked about that very thing. Alex, how long did you know? When you did find out, what were you able to do with it? And the answer is mind-blowing.
It really is. They've been working on this stuff now for weeks and weeks, because once the renderings came out from NASCAR of what these scoops, if you will, coming out of the back of the radiator to go to those outlets in the middle of the hood, once NASCAR released those renderings to the teams took it upon themselves to start building them in-house so they could try to get a leg up and get an understanding of what these actual outlets and these air ducts were going to do and how they were going to work, and let's be honest, how they can make it to their advantage and get their car to go faster than everybody else's. I thought it was telling that Chad Knaus in that piece just a moment ago, the smartest guy in that garage arguably said, running these Gen 7 cars or whatever they're calling them. That's how there is that level of confusion there. And Kim Kuhn, you've been hanging around down there in the William Byron, Chad Knaus garage area. They're 5th on the board right now. There's a lot of question marks down there, but if you're going to have some questions answered, I guess Chad Knaus is one of the best guys to go to.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I had no idea what that piece with Chad Knaus was going to be about. I had no idea what he was going to say in it, and just by the body language and the things he's been doing in the garage without having heard that piece, knew that Chad Knaus was in testing mode. You can tell that he is laser focused. He's trying to build a notebook for whatever NASCAR is going to do with what they learned here this weekend, because remember, in recent years, NASCAR officials have used the All-Star race to test new ideas. We've talked about it, many of which have found their way into future points-paying races, and so the idea is that perhaps maybe something we see here this weekend, if it works, depending on the feedback from the teams, drivers, the crew chief, maybe we'll see it in that car scheduled to hit the track in 2021. But again, I knew from moment start that Chad Knaus was in testing mode. He has touched all four corners of the race car. He's had in-depth conversations with his crew. It's been interesting. He was a little bit unsure about something on the back windshield. He was paying particular attention to that. He had lifted the rear decklet at one point, looking underneath the back of the car. Something along the lines of he didn't like what was happening near the two holes where you insert a wrench to adjust the track bar or a wedge adjustment. So they worked on that, got William back out. Chad Knaus, remember, he knows what it takes to win an all-star race. He was Jimmy Johnson's crew chief for years and years and years. They took home 4 checks for $1 million here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And so I think really his priority here is testing, knowing what we've seen from him in past races when we go to Daytona and these teams are in testing mode. Chad Knaus is always the first crew chief to say, I am trying to build my notebook. Alongside that, he is trying to coach his young driver. It was interesting. I popped into their radio feed to see if I could get anything. It was mainly spotter. Then when they pulled in the garage, I saw Chad Knaus talking and gesturing to William Byron in the car, and I could see William nodding his head. Well, remember, these teams, they've got an open channel, but they got a closed channel too. So Chad Knaus was giving his driver some coaching. It looked by his hand motions, maybe he was talking to William perhaps about how to get in and out of a turn more smoothly, but this team definitely have a fast race car and are definitely putting some things down for future reference if we see something pulled from this all-star race package and put into the car for 2021.
Well, you're learning about the driver of the number 24, William Byron, and while she was talking about William, you were seeing it live on NASCAR.com, William taking his Chevrolet to the front of a 6-car draft. They got some speed there. And you were talking, Alex Hayden, about how you think Chad just loves the challenge that NASCAR throws at him.
I do. I think situations like this is what really gets Chad Knaus going inside and internally, because you're going to throw him a couple of pieces of a puzzle, if you will, and it's up to Chad to try to figure this out before anybody else. That's the competitive Chad Knaus, and that's the cerebral Chad Knaus as well. He wants to figure out and solve the problem before anybody else can. I think that's the best way to describe Chad Knaus and why he's had so much success. And quite frankly, I wouldn't be at all surprised for them to have success this weekend because of that.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. We're going to go to Twitter and then right back downstairs and get Steve and Kimmy's thoughts on our question of the day. We'll do it next from Charlotte Motor Speedway. This is the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Jake was in big trouble with the IRS. He owed how much?
$92,000.
Ouch. The IRS left no room for Jake to breathe.
They put a lien on my house, took all the money out of my bank account, took money out of my paychecks. So it was a nightmare.
He needed help fast.
I figured that all these companies were the same until I called Federal Tax Management. You could just tell they knew what they were talking about. Right then and there, I felt like I had some hope.
Stop the liens, levies, and garnishments fast and qualify for one of several special IRS programs that could reduce or even eliminate your tax debt. So, how'd it go for Jake?
They did what they said they would do. They came through for me. I ended up saving an unbelievable amount. I was so jazzed. I was extremely happy.
If you owe more than $10,000 in back taxes, take Jake's advice.
Give Federal Tax Management a phone call. If they help me, they can help anybody.
Call the Federal Tax Management Hotline now. 800-242-1706. 800-242-1706. 800-242-1706.
Live from the Charlotte Motor Speedway with coverage of practice for the 2019 Monster Energy NASCAR All-Star Race.
Welcome back to Charlotte Motor Speedway. You are with us one of two different ways here, and that it would be MRN.com or NASCAR.com. If you're MRN, you are getting just audio. If you're with NASCAR.com, you're getting both audio and the visual footage. We are also working with you on Twitter today at MRN Radio. Use the hashtag AskMRN. And if that's not enough, just a few moments ago, Alex Hayden, we made, I don't know if it's our television debut, because I guess we've probably been on TV once or twice before, but a moment ago, we were out in L.A. and it showed up on TV.
Yeah, if you're watching us on NASCAR.com, listening to us live here on MRN.com, and you might have been in the other room saying, wait a minute, but I just saw Jeff and Alex on television with Kyle Rickey.
For 0.6 of a second. Steve, for 0.6 of a second, we were stars because we were part, Alex, of the taping and now the rebroadcast of your favorite show.
Yeah, The Price is Right. We were on The Price is Right. We had a good time with it. Steve, I think, has had more than 0.6 of a second. Have you not, Steve, of airtime?
Yeah, that old show that John Walsh used to do, America's Most Wanted.
Well, we were there, and according to Kyle Rickey, who tweeted out a moment ago, it was .064 on the clock is the amount of time we got.
The screen grab of the photo that Kyle posted, it was so quick on the air, the screen grab is blurry. That's how it is.
But we had smiles on our faces. We were jumping for joy, and the reason was the guy sitting directly next to us was chosen and became a winner. We, on the other hand, were not winners.
We watched him win.
We were beautiful losers, as Bob Seger might say. How's that? Hey, you see how I worked that in? He was, by the way, in Charlotte last night. Our Twitter question, our MRN question is very simple. How many of the drivers that are here today, and you can focus on the open cars, you can focus on the all-star cars and teams, don't care. How many of the drivers that are here will be future Hall of Famers? I think for the most part, we either have the number of 9 or 10, and it really comes down to the fact of whether you have Chase Elliott as becoming a future Hall of Famer. Steve, we were talking during the break. Do you have any surprises on your list? You said no. I don't think I do. I don't think Alex or Kim does either. But what do you think? It's crazy when you look in that garage, man. There's a number of people that those that will precede us will be talking about in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of this conversation was stemmed from post-race in Kansas. Brad Keselowski mentioned in his post-race conversation in Kansas that he reached the 30-win plateau, and he felt like that's kind of a benchmark as far as the Hall of Fame goes. And Brad also has that championship. So when you look at that as the benchmark, and I think Brad's pretty accurate, when you seem to get in the 30-win category, that seems to be where it is. And actually looking at drivers that have more than 30 wins, there's not anybody that's not eligible. There's guys with more than 30 wins that are still active, but when you look at eligible drivers, every one of them is in the Hall of Fame. Fireball Roberts, 33 wins, no championships, but he is a Hall of Famer. Bobby Isaac, 37 wins and 1 championship, is a Hall of Famer. Dale Jarrett, 32 wins and 1 championship. So I think that's what stemmed the conversation. But when I think about any shocks, I think the only one that is, and he's not here, he's retired from the sport. I think an interesting debate is 28-win Carl Edwards with no championships, and maybe that's a defining line as far as that goes. But when we look at drivers here, I think we've kind of covered the ones that are looking to get in, the Jimmy Johnsons and the Kevin Harvicks of the world and the Kyle Bushes of the world. I think those are the ones that are pretty much slam dunks. And, we just kind of have to see with these young guys how far they go before we start to look at their body of work as far as the Hall of Fame goes.
83 wins, 7 championships. Jimmy Johnson, okay, that's a lock. Kyle Busch, 54-1, a lock. Harvick, 45-1, and by 1 I mean a championship, a lock. Then you get back to what Brad said last week, career win number 30 to go with his championship from 2012, and he says, now I can be considered in that conversation. If that's true then, Alex, I want you to explain his teammate and one of the arch rivals in Martin Truex. Truex has 21 wins, 1 championship, came in 17. Logano, 22 wins, a championship a year ago. If for some reason they stopped racing today, based on what Brad said, I got 30, now I'm in that conversation. Logano doesn't have 30. He has 22. Truex doesn't have 30. He has 21. If their season or their career ended for whatever reason, they decided to walk away, are they NASCAR Hall of Famers, yes or no, and why?
Yes, they are. First of all, we're running slim on drivers who have won 30 times at the Cup level. The biggest thing about it is, though, it's the NASCAR Hall of Fame. It's not the Cup Hall of Fame. So you have to look at their entire body of work under the NASCAR banner. Truex, an Xfinity Series champion. Dale Jr., Xfinity Series champion. Then I think you got to look at some of the major wins that they've had. The Daytona 500, whether you agree or not, and that's part of the debate, to me, the Daytona 500, winning that race carries an awful lot of weight. That is our sport's biggest race. Then you look at the Coke 600 here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. You look at the Southern 500, the Bojangles Southern 500 at Darlington. You look at that, and whether you like it or not, you talk to people who have raced there, the greats of our sports. The king, Richard Petty, puts it there too. The Brickyard 400. If you can win that at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, that is considered also a crown jewel in the sport of NASCAR racing. So you got to look at their entire body of work in the NASCAR world, not just what they've done in the Cup Series. So, yeah, I think Martin Truex Jr. is going to be a NASCAR Hall of Famer. Should he stop racing today, I think he's in. I think Joey Logano is in as well. Joey with the championship last year. He's won the Daytona 500. All that Joey's done as far as his body of work in NASCAR, I think is impressive and good enough to do it.
Meaning then that Brad Keselowski, whether he believes he should be in the conversation or not, is a future NASCAR Hall of Famer based on what you just said.
Yeah.
So what we would have here, Kim, your turn. We've got Jimmy, we've got Kyle. These are things that we agree on. Harvick in, Brad in. I agree with Alex that Joey and Truex are in. I think we all agree, and you had brought it up, Chad Knaus is in. We haven't really talked about Kurt Busch or Denny Hamlin a lot. Let's leave that open for debate a moment. Kim, what do you think at this particular point?
Well, I have to agree with that list that you guys said were definite, and it's hard to argue against, the Jimmys and the Kevin Harvicks and the Kyle Bushes and the Martin Truex Jr.'s. They've certainly, I would say, even if they ended their career now, already earned their way in. Now, there's some guys in the field that you could say they have the potential. They have the potential to be a future Hall of Famer, depending on how the rest of the career goes. I would put Denny Hamlin in that mix. Maybe win him a championship, a couple of championships. I think he definitely becomes one. I think Denny's a guy that has drawn attention to NASCAR because of the things he loves to do off the track. He obviously gets a lot of the spotlight when he goes to other sporting events. He's big in the golf. He is a personality that people like to follow when he's doing things off track. So I think throw in a couple more numbers in his win column, or whether it's a championship, you have Denny potentially earning himself a spot in the Hall of Fame. Kurt Busch, I would say yes. He's already won a championship. I think he is closing to the end of his career. I think it's going to be a while before we see Kurt Busch get into the Hall of Fame. I don't think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, certainly. And then looking down the road, maybe some potential that has yet to really grab on to their full place in the Cup Series. I would put Kyle Larson in that. Is he a Hall of Famer now? No. He should have, I would say, double the wins that he has now. He just hasn't quite figured everything out. But I think once that clicks and Kyle starts winning and Kyle wins the championships, we could certainly see a guy like Larson. So I would put him in the potential, depending on how the next 5 years goes. But it's hard to say. It really is. I don't have a vote, but that's where my thoughts are.
And we all have an opinion on that. Fortunately, I am a voter for the NASCAR Hall of Fame. And, we're very fortunate to have Steve Post as part of our Motor Racing Network crew, because a lot of people may or may not know Steve Post has a history in this sport before the Motor Racing Network. And Steve, one of the debates about this, and one of the drivers up for consideration this coming Wednesday to go into the NASCAR Hall of Fame, is a guy by the name of Ricky Rudd. Steve worked very close with Ricky Rudd, and I'll let Steve kind of describe his role with Ricky and how close he was to him. But Steve, when you look at Ricky Rudd's body of work, he's up for consideration on the vote this coming Wednesday. No championships there for Ricky Rudd. No, he didn't win the Daytona 500, but yet Ricky Rudd is up for NASCAR Hall of Fame, and rightfully so.
Yeah, Ricky is in the high teens as far as wins goes. I think it's 18 if I'm not mistaken, but no championships. And the debate is what is important, okay? If it's all about championships, then Ricky's not going to get in. The win thing, he's at 18. There's some in that have fewer wins than that, and the majority have more wins than that. But then let's look at the off-track stuff, the tough guy aspect of Ricky Rudd. I mean, he went 17 years, I believe it was, winning a race every year. He had the Ironman streak as far as number of starts go for the longest time until I think Terry Labonte might have taken that from him, or I might be backward on that as far as Terry and Ricky goes. But he has the Ironman thing. He had the streak of wins, and and then you have the real out there as far as personality stuff goes. Early in his career, bad crash at Daytona in the Clash. And he went to Richmond a week later, had to tape his eyes open with duct tape, and won that race. Now, that doesn't show up on a stat sheet, but that does ring as, wow, this is what NASCAR is all about. Ricky was also a team owner, one of those guys that went into the team ownership role, and he won the Brickyard 400 as a team owner driver. So I think with Ricky, you get into the subtle non-statistics. If it's all about statistics, I don't think Ricky Rudd makes it. If you look at that tough guy, the team owner, the Iron Man, if you look at that, then I think that's why he's in consideration and may very well get the nod on Wednesday afternoon at 5 o'clock when we announce that. Ricky's one of those guys, personally, yeah, I'd love to see him get in. I spent 2 years doing PR with him with Robert Yates Racing in Texaco Haviland. We traveled the country, so personally, it would make me very, very happy. I'm glad I don't have a vote because I don't want the personal to get in the mix of that. But if he doesn't get in, I don't necessarily say I'll be surprised. If he does get in, I don't think I'll be surprised because his real value to put him over the top would be those intangible things that made him just the unique caliber of race car driver that he was.
And to me, Jeff, that is the valid argument. Ricky Rudd and Steve did a wonderful job of explaining that point of why you can't simply go by championships or by race wins.
Denny Hamlin, 33 wins, but still does not have a championship. But I think among this group, we figured Denny is probably a lock at some point. I'm going to throw a wrench into it in just a second after I tell you that we are about wrapped up here, unofficially about 3 minutes, give or take, and we're going to see the red and black flags for the 24 open teams. Their practice session will be over. That's it. They're done. Get ready to go in the Open tomorrow night, and your shot at trying to advance into the All-Star and win $1 million. Coming up next, and we're going nowhere, by the way, when the red and black flags come out, the All-Star teams will be taking to the racetrack for about a half hour of practice and then about 20 minutes of pit stop practice. Don't go anywhere. That is as fun as it's going to get, watching them come down pit road at 170, give or take, and try to get stopped in a pit box and let the crew go to work. So don't go anywhere. We've still got a lot more to get to. So once we're done here, we're staying on the air. We're going to transition right into the All-Star practice. Back to a final thought here with Kim and Steve. We talk about body of work. We talk about looking into a crystal ball. And the one name that keeps popping up on a lot of people is Chase Elliott. I think Chase will be a Hall of Famer. We also saw a handful of people saying when Kyle Larson is all said and done, Kyle's going to be a future NASCAR Hall of Famer. I got a thought here, though. We were kind of debating this just a little bit. Will those two drivers spend 20 years in our sport like we have seen so many before them? We just heard, Steve Post talking about Ricky Rudd and how long he spent in the sport. And the reason that I bring that up, and I think you would agree, the young drivers today have other things on their mind rather than saying, I'm going to be in NASCAR till I turn 53 years old and then I'm going to walk away and retire. These guys are race car drivers and they love to race. They also love to go back to where it all started. Would you agree?
I do. I do agree. And so you have to kind of take that into consideration as well, because Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott, Chase Elliott's only got 4 career wins at the Cup level. Yeah, he did well in the Xfinity Series. Kyle Larson, he's only got 5 career wins at the Cup level. So there's an awful lot to be debated on that, and it's fun. It's fun discussion to have, especially here on NASCAR Hall of Fame week here in our world of NASCAR racing here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Getting closer and closer to the conclusion of practice. We are down to the final 30 seconds of the final practice for the 24 open teams. Daniel Hemric is the fastest right now on the board at 180.2 miles per hour. He's the only driver to break into the 180 mile an hour bracket. Michael McDowell second quick. Matt Tifft is third. Kyle Larson is fourth. Fifth is Ty Dillon. But Daniel Hemric is fast. Let's go back down to the garage area, get a little bit more on Daniel Hemric. That car's been fast down there all day today for Daniel Hemric. Let's go back to the garage and find out more about Hemric.
Well, Daniel Hemric all the way makes the long toe in here at Charlotte from, Kannapolis. He grew up in the shadows of this speedway, did Daniel Hemric. And Daniel's career and this racetrack go hand in hand because he was arguably one of the, if not the best Legends car driver that the Tuesday Night Summer Shootout Series has ever graduated. I mean, that cat wore everybody out when they came to town, and he ran his Legends car around this racetrack. So he has a long and storied history with this racetrack. Now, when we get here for this style of racing, this Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series style of racing, and in particular today, yeah, he's very, very fast. And the other thing is, he's got a lot of laps in. I think the last I checked, he was at 28, and he was going back out on the racetrack. So he has got a lot of laps, and that's a good sign as drivers have tried to figure this race car out. He's gone to the top of the charts. He's at 31 laps is where he ends up with this one. So, yes, lots of laps and fast laps. That's a good combination for Daniel Hemric, and boy, he would like nothing more than to score some headlines here tomorrow night on his home track. Daniel grew up, as I mentioned, in Kannapolis, North Carolina. He's not one of these guys that moved here. He grew up in that town just north of Concord, which is where this speedway is located, so it would be huge for him to be able to do it here in front of the home crowd. And very capable race car driver, Richard Childress Racing. We've seen some good speed out of their cars here this season at times, and who knows, maybe we'll find some of that